What's up, producers? Sam Matler here from EDMProd, and in this video I'm going to talk about why you should set goals as a producer, how to set them, and how to not fail. Here's the thing: if you've grown up in the West or any country where you've had access to this Western way of thinking, you know what goals are. You probably also know what a SMART goal is: specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-based. What I'm not going to do in this video is tell you how to set SMART goals, because I know that you know how to do that. But here's the thing: people know what goals are, people know how to set them, but I've talked to thousands of producers over the years through running EDMProd, and what I've noticed is this: most producers do not set goals. They don't set goals to work on their craft, to improve their music. Even the ones who are trying to make a full-time career out of this are not setting goals. Why is this? Why are producers not setting goals? Or why do most producers not set goals? I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But I also want to state that the producers who do set goals often fail to achieve them. Not everyone, but a lot of them do. And they don't know why. So let's start with why producers do not set goals. There's a few reasons why. Number one is just lazy. They're lazy. Let me just put the pen on here. So they might be lazy. That's one reason why producers don't set goals. The other reason is that they are romantic. And I don't mean that and hey, go buy some flowers and chocolate for your girl. They're lazy, or they're romantic, or they're scared. So what do I mean by lazy? Well, chances are you got into music production because you enjoyed it. You loved electronic music. You wanted to learn how to make it. And so you went to Google and you downloaded FL Studio or Ableton, and you just started making music or learning how to make music, and you loved it. You had a lot of fun. There wasn't a huge amount of effort involved because everything was so new and exciting. It's like when you start a video game, it's amazing, it's enjoyable, but eventually you get to a point where it becomes a grind. To get to that next stage, you have to grind. What a lot of producers do is they start off in this phase of enjoyment and bliss and flow, and then they start entering the grind. And it's at this point where you need to set goals. That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Unfortunately, a lot of producers don't want to do that because that takes effort. As soon as you set a goal, you've acknowledged to yourself that this isn't 100% easy and effortless anymore. You've acknowledged to yourself that, okay, there's an obstacle that I have to overcome here. There's a struggle that I have to go through to achieve this thing. Otherwise, if there wasn't, why would you set a goal? You wouldn't need to. So to set a goal implies that there is an obstacle of some kind. And so one reason why producers don't set goals is because they don't want to acknowledge that this is actually hard and that they actually need to push through something to achieve what they want. These people in this lazy category will spend years upon years upon years making half-finished songs, even maybe finishing songs, but not really making any progress because they don't push themselves. They don't like discomfort. I've seen this time and time again with people who say they've been producing for 10 years and they sound like they've been producing for 6 months. So that's lazy. And lazy producers do not like discomfort. Like this. You're going to have to excuse my handwriting. And therefore, don't set goals because goals imply equal discomfort. All right. So that's the first category of producers who don't set goals. The second, and these are linked, by the way, often, not always, but often. The second is the romantic people, those who romanticize the creative process. These are the types of people who, whenever you talk about building a career in music production or setting goals or being systematic about how you learn, they'll say that's not right. They'll say, doesn't that kill creativity? Like, what about just enjoying it? What about art? All that kind of stuff. Sometimes also called hippies, but I don't want to offend anyone. So the romantic people will say that you shouldn't set goals because it destroys the creative process. So romantic people think goals kill creativity. Of course, where does this motivation for them to say that come from? Usually, it's because they don't like discomfort. They don't want to acknowledge that actually music production can be hard. Because if you're in a romantic mindset, the assumption is that this should always be easy, that you should be inspired, that you can only make music when you are inspired. And anything that goes against that notion is bad. Okay? So often you will see this kind of romantic mindset come out of what is fundamentally laziness. So, goals kill creativity. Often this comes from a place of discomfort or they don't like it, but not always. Goals kill creativity. Therefore, don't set goals because goals kill creativity. Right? And then the final one, and this is, I would say, not necessarily connected to laziness and romanticism. It's almost its own separate category. They're scared. They're scared of what might happen if they fail to achieve their goal. So, what might happen if they fail or succeed? If they fail, this is more common than you think. People are scared of failure. They're scared of trying to achieve something and not achieving it. There are ways around this, which we're going to talk about. But a lot of people are also, they have a fear of success. What will happen if I achieve my goal? How will that change my life? If you're in a comfortable position in life, setting goals that you can achieve may significantly change your life, and you can't predict how they will. And that can be a discomforting thing. So both of these can lead to discomfort, fear of failure, success. Failure or success, not fear, sorry, can both lead to discomfort. So they're scared of what might happen. They're scared of maybe failing or succeeding. And therefore, it's better to just remain in this kind of limbo state of, hey, I'll just make music and not really deal with that. And again, these people often don't really go anywhere. So this is not always laziness though. I've met a lot of people who are very ambitious, very driven, but they have this fear of what might happen or what could happen. Okay? And often it's a deeper issue than what can be addressed in a video like this. So that's why a lot of producers fail to set goals. They're lazy, they're romantic, or they're scared. But what about producers who do set goals and fail to achieve them? What about that? Well, let's look at that. Okay, so let's say we have a producer who sets a goal. We've got producer over here. And we've got goal over here. Obviously, the plan is for them to move along like this towards the goal. And this is going to take time. Oops. Now, what a lot of producers do, and just people in general, is they think that time is the only real obstacle. They set a goal, and when people set goals, this is what you have to realize. When producers set goals, they're normally in a state of high motivation. Maybe they've read a book, or maybe they've watched a video like this, or they've listened to a motivational talk, or they've watched an interview with another producer. And they make the conscious decision of, and say to themselves something like, you know what, I've been wasting my time for so long. I've been complacent. It's time to make a change. It's time to set a goal and achieve it. When you're in this high state of motivation, anything seems possible because you've just watched this video or read this book or whatever, and you trick yourself into thinking that, you know it's going to be hard consciously, but you don't really think about how hard it's going to be. And so you start to think that given enough time, you can do anything you want. And so you start to see time as the only obstacle. But when you see time as the only obstacle between you and where you want to be, which is here, you get really disappointed because, of course, time is not the only obstacle. So here's what will happen. You'll start moving along. Let's say this is like a 6-month goal. And then maybe after month 1, you're not as sure as you were at the beginning whether you can achieve this goal or not. Your certainty is not as high. So we can call this belief. Belief in yourself and your ability to achieve the goal starts to decrease. Okay? And then maybe you push through that, you still believe you can achieve it, just not as much because you don't have this high state of motivation anymore. So you get to maybe month 2 or 3 or whatever, and you encounter another obstacle. This obstacle is motivation. Right? So now, not only do you lack belief that you can achieve the goal, because of course this has gotten worse. That's not going to get better. It's going down, 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 down. And now you don't feel motivated, of course, because you don't believe you can achieve it. So why would you feel motivated? So your motivation is also going down. And then you move along a bit and you get to here and you realize you're not going to be able to achieve this. You end up at this point of quitting. And that's it. And you do not achieve your goal. Now, this is an issue, of course, but we can't really address quitting without addressing these. So there are 3 reasons why producers fail to achieve their goals. Number 1 is they don't believe they can do it. The second one is they have no motivation or they lose it. The third one is not quitting. Quitting is the symptom of these. The third one is they have no plan. So, belief plus motivation plus plan equals success, right? If we have all these things, if we have a belief that we can achieve the goal, if we have motivation to carry us through, and we have a plan for achieving it, we will achieve our goal. So, let's just recap what we've looked at so far, because I want you to understand this. Most producers don't set goals. The reason they don't set goals is because usually they're lazy, and laziness kind of discourages them from setting a goal, because as soon as they set a goal, they have to acknowledge that there is a struggle and an obstacle that they need to push through. Often this can manifest itself in the form of romanticism about creativity and art and music. And you start thinking things like, I can't set a goal, or I can't put the system in place because that kills the whole creative process. We know that's not true, by the way. Many artists and composers and authors and so on, some of the most creative people in the world are very ambitious, systematic, and goal-oriented. Finally, we learn that there's a third category of person, producer, who doesn't set goals because they're scared of what the outcome might be. Then we learned that the producers who do set goals, many of them fail because they lack one or more of these things: belief, motivation, or plan. And so to remedy this, we need to develop belief, motivation, and a plan. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how to do in the rest of this video. So let's start by looking at belief. So I had a friend growing up who, by no fault of his own, had severe limiting beliefs. His MO, his way of operating, like his operating system, was just, no, I can't do it. To pretty much everything. You could put the perfect plan in front of him. The plan that took inventory of his skills, his ambitions, his desires, his connections, his environment, everything. The perfect plan. And he would still not believe that he could do it. And that got him in trouble. He definitely lagged behind. And again, by no fault of his own, it was his upbringing. Partly anyway. But I tell you this because belief has to come before the other two. If you don't believe that you can actually achieve your goal, then motivation and plan, or motivation won't be there, but the plan doesn't matter. You can have the perfect plan and not believe that you can achieve the goal. So you can't just rely on your plan alone. So how do you fix this problem of belief? Unless you've got a severe psychological issue, similar to this friend that I was just telling you about, there are some things you can do to fix this. So first is making sure that your goal is not too ambitious. I've had producers email me asking how they can become the next Martin Garrix in 6 months, or how they can tour the world in a year, even though they've just started making music. These people are deluded. They have what I would say is too strong of a belief in themselves. But if you see other people setting goals like this, which are just extreme, and you think that you need to do it yourself, it's pretty easy to get to a point where you don't believe you can do it, because chances are you're probably right. Like, I haven't met anyone who's gone from beginner to touring the world in 6 months. I never have. I don't think I will. So that's unrealistic. If you set unrealistic, like overly ambitious goals like this, of course you're not going to believe that you can achieve them, because there's something in you that's saying this doesn't make sense economically, in terms of time, money, everything. So people struggle with this because they set goals that are too ambitious. So I would recommend to not set goals too ambitious. And when you do this, you need to ask yourself, like, where you're at. You need to be honest with yourself. If you're a new producer, don't set a hard goal. And if you have a mindset problem, like the friend that I mentioned, and that your mode of thinking is that I can't do this, then I would recommend setting a goal that's actually extremely easy to achieve. Because you have to get that feeling of achievement and success back. You need to remember what that feels like and build momentum. You need to prove to yourself that you can actually achieve something. Now, the second thing to help you with this belief issue is to think from first principles. So what I notice is that a lot of people make excuses for the goals they set, or the goals they don't set. They will only set certain goals because they feel like other goals don't make sense given their environment or whatever. So a lot of people will limit themselves or set goals that are too easy because they have assumptions about production, about building a career in the scene, about whatever, that aren't necessarily true. Like I kind of said at the start with the laziness thing, one of the reasons why producers start to believe that they can't achieve their goals, even if those goals are attainable, is because it's easier to hold the belief that they can't. Because again, they don't need to take action. If you believe you can achieve your goal, that means effort, and your lizard brain does not like that, because lizard brain wants to take the path of least resistance. And one of the most popular excuses I hear from people is, I'm just not talented enough, or I'm just not musical enough. Other ones might be, I don't live in the right city or country to do this. Now, to combat this, we need to think from first principles. We need to actually look at what is true and what is reality. Like, what is scientifically true? Not just what we assume is true, not just what our limiting beliefs and our lizard brain is telling us. So let's take the talent thing, for example. People will say, I'm just not talented. Or they might say, I don't have enough talent to do that goal. Maybe it's create an album, right? I'm just not talented enough. This is what they'll say. Well, what is talent? From what I've read and looked into, scientifically, talent isn't a thing. Check out Peak by Anders Ericsson, it's a good book, and The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. They completely dismantle this idea that you're born with talent. So I'm just not talented. If we're thinking from first principles like this, we need to start with the assumption, the true assumption, that talent does not exist, and what makes people and producers great is extended amounts of deliberate practice. And that's a principle. Talent doesn't exist. Instead, extended, deliberate practice. Right? And so what does that mean? What does it mean that deliberate practice gets people to that position? It means that unless you're mentally or physically impaired, like if you're deaf, for instance, you can, with enough time and effort and deliberate practice, get to where you want to be, just in a purely musical sense. Like if you want to make professional sounding music, you can get there. Now, there are exceptions to this, right? Because like I said before, you shouldn't set goals that are too ambitious. If your goal is to make professional music that sounds just as good as, a top tier artist, that's achievable. But if your goal is to become the next Calvin Harris, that does not just come down to deliberate practice. There are market forces there which you cannot control. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. I wouldn't recommend setting a goal like that to be the next DJ Mag Top 100, if people actually care about that ranking anymore. I don't know. And along with that first principles, it helps use historical data to look at whether something's true or not. So let's take another excuse. Let's say someone sets a goal of wanting to play a show in the US and they live in, say, Australia. Well, they might say, or maybe not Australia, maybe we'll use Australia, like a small kind of outback town in Australia that has internet. They might say, I live in the wrong town. And that's an assumption that they're making. And that causes them to lack belief. Well, all they need to do is ask themselves or look into the data and try to find an example of someone who has achieved the kind of success that they're after and from a similar place. And what they'll find is that, yes, such and such an artist from this isolated town actually ended up playing a North American tour or something like that. So historical data can help. So once you've dealt with the belief issue, there's this issue of motivation, because you can have absolute belief in your ability to achieve a goal, yet get 1 month in and lack motivation and not want to work on it. But you need to deal with this belief problem before you address the motivation one, because like I said at the start, if you don't believe you can achieve the goal, you're not going to feel motivated. In fact, I don't think there's a better killer of motivation than not believing you can achieve it, because why would you work at it if you know that you're not going to achieve it? So we need to address that issue first of belief and then move on to motivation. But before I talk about motivation, I do want to make a disclaimer, because I don't think motivation is the be all and end all to achieving goals. And I think if you make it that, you're likely to fail. There are going to be periods, there are going to be days, weeks, possibly months where you're just going to have to do the work. Like you're just going to have to push through regardless of how you feel. That's what professionals do. Professional producers do that. Artists, authors, all of them will tell you that they've had days and weeks, possibly even months, possibly in some cases even years, where they did not feel like working on their craft. That's not motivation, that's self-discipline, and you need it. However, on the other end of the spectrum, people make the mistake of saying that motivation doesn't really mean anything at all. I used to think that. I think motivation is very important. And I think if you can build it up and if you can maintain it, you should. And here's how you do it. There's two things that I think contribute to motivation. The first is momentum. The second is vertical coherence. That's not how it's spelled, which I'll explain in just a moment. But let's start with momentum. So one reason why people fail to achieve their goals is because they get discouraged. This is kind of a lack of belief thing, and it's a motivation thing as well. But let's say your goal is to produce a 3-track EP in the next 90 days. And it's day one. And you spend like 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday working on a song, and you get to the end of that session and you just don't like the song. The idea isn't that good. The arrangement's not good. You're just going to scrap it, like it's not that good. You can get to the end of that day and look ahead at your goal of making a 3-track EP in 90 days and just think to yourself, man, this is so far away. I wasted my time today. And you see this huge gap between current situation and goal, right? And this seems just overwhelming, this gap here. And that sucks. And that's going to make you feel demotivated. This gap leads to less or lack of motivation. So to combat this and to get rid of this gap, what we need to do is create momentum. And how we do that is very simple, and you will have done this before, is we systemize the goal. And this is going to be talked about in the planning section. But we systemize a goal. So instead of seeing the goal as, I'm going to make an EP in 3 months or 90 days, it's, I'm going to produce for 2 hours every day. So momentum involves taking the goal and breaking it down into steps, or just a metric, which I'll talk about. But in this case, a metric might be 2 hours a day of production. And now what's happened, right, is this gap here has changed because we've actually changed the goal. This is the new goal. So now we have current situation, wake up on a Saturday morning, and the goal is to make music for 2 hours. And it doesn't matter how good it sounds, because eventually if we put in enough time, we're going to get good output. So the new goal is like here, and we've got this much smaller gap of 2 hours, and we don't feel that unmotivated because anyone can put in 2 hours of time into music. If you can't, you've got bigger issues. You should be watching another video. So that gap's gone, and we do that day in and day out, and we build momentum. And all of a sudden, we've forgotten about this gap over here because we're just so focused on this, the daily work and the daily output, that our motivation levels are just through the roof, right? Like we're just crushing it. So when you work towards your goal consistently like this, on a daily basis, you feel good because you're putting in the work and you're achieving things every day, but you're also closing this gap here between current situation and desired situation. So that's momentum. That is the first thing, in my opinion, that contributes to motivation. I'm just going to get rid of all this somehow. Okay, I'm just going to clear the page. So the second one, if we go back to motivation, we've looked at momentum. We've got that sorted. Momentum equals daily output, ideally, or as most consistent as possible. Output plus closing the gap, right? Gap. Vertical coherence, on the other hand, is almost in a way extending this gap as far as we can, but in a way that motivates us. So what do I mean by that? Vertical coherence. This is not a term I came up with. It's from a guy, he might not have even coined it either. I think he did though. From a guy called Taylor Pearson. You can look him up. Apologies for my sniffling my voice. I have a terrible cold that I've had all week. So vertical coherence is making sure that our daily work and even our goals, like our shorter term goals, say 3 to 6 month goals, making sure that those fit into a bigger picture or vision. So people do this somewhat naturally, but they don't think about it. The guy in his mid 40s who is overweight starts going to the gym because he wants to be around to see his kids grow up. Like he's not healthy and he wants to fix that. What he's doing, like when he goes to the gym, he's not just going to the gym because he likes going to the gym, because he likes exercising. Chances are he doesn't. But what he's doing is using vertical coherence to motivate himself. He's got this vision in mind. Maybe it's 10 years from now. Maybe it's 20. Maybe it's 30 years from now of playing with his grandkids, being able to kick a soccer ball around with them. That's what motivates him to go to the gym. That's vertical coherence. It's 10 to 15 years in the future. But he knows that if he doesn't address it on a daily basis in this current time period, then it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And he's going to get further away from that. So as producers, we want this daily momentum, but we also want a bigger picture, and it doesn't have to be crystal clear. It can be very vague, a bigger picture of where we're trying to go with this. You can do this even as a new producer. So maybe you're watching this right now and you know, the whole touring scene, the whole doing the DJ thing, it doesn't really appeal to you, but you love making music and you love producing. So maybe your goal is to work in film, or TV, like doing production for that. And so that's a 10 to 15 year goal. So you've got this long-term, like 10 to 15 year goal of work in the industry. And maybe your goal is to actually have a well-paying job in that and be at the top of the industry, whatever. You can do that in 15 years for sure. So let's say 15 years. And then now, whatever you do down here, we'll say this is time. Whatever you do down here should connect ideally to this. So maybe your 90-day goal for now is to produce an EP. Well, does that connect to this goal? Absolutely. You're developing your craft. You're putting out work that could potentially showcase. So that's good. And so in the middle of working on this EP, when you're in the grind, what you can do is look to your long-term goal and see that the work that you're doing today, when you just do not feel like it at all, is contributing to yourself 15 years from now. It's going to help you get to this position you really want to be in. Just like the guy in his mid-40s doesn't want to wake up and go to the gym, but he's going to go because he wants to be that grandfather that can play with his grandkids. That's vertical coherence, very important. So we looked at the belief issue and we learned that people often set goals that are too ambitious, or they don't think from first principles, and they won't set goals that are ambitious enough because they have some sort of limiting belief. Then we looked at motivation. We learned that momentum is a great way to build and sustain motivation because it reduces this gap between current situation and desired situation. We also just looked at vertical coherence. Now we're going to look at the third piece of the puzzle, which is the plan. Okay, so we need to put this into action. We need to put it onto paper, figuratively speaking, because I know that you all use computers. And we need to define what it actually looks like when we're working towards our goal. So there's a few steps to this. First of all, you should have a vague long-term vision. And it's worth pausing the video right now and kind of thinking about that. This is not something that needs to be set in stone at all. In fact, it shouldn't be, because your desires and preferences are going to change. Then, what we're going to do, and I can walk you through this, but you want to create this plan. You want to set a goal and you want to create a plan for achieving it. So step one, let's call this plan. 3 steps involved. Step one is to set a 90-day controllable output goal. What do I mean by controllable output? It's very important because this leads back to motivation and momentum. What a lot of producers will do is set a goal like this. In the next 6 months, I want to get 1 million plays on one of my songs. Well, that's a great goal, and you might be able to achieve that. But you know what? It's not up to you. You cannot guarantee, unless you pay money, that you are going to get 1 million plays on that song. It doesn't matter how good your song is. It doesn't matter how good your promotion plan is. You cannot guarantee something like that. And that does not have a controllable output. What happens when you set goals like that is you normally end up demotivated because you fail often because you can't control the outcome. And you kind of know that, like, instinctively. If you're working on a song and you've told yourself, I'm going to get 1 million plays on this, it really messes with your creativity. You put a lot of pressure on yourself and you start to doubt. So you want to set a 90-day controllable output goal. For example, you might say, I'm going to make an EP, a 3-track EP in 90 days. Well, if you fail at that, it's completely your fault. You know, there's no market forces or anything that's stopping you from doing that. Sure, you might have an event, like your wife might get pregnant, or you might have a kid and your time's just gone. But those are exceptional cases. If you fail to achieve that goal, it's on you and your lack of discipline or whatever. Now, why 90 days? You can set longer goals if you want. I just think 90 days is a perfect time period. It coincides with each quarter of the year. That's just the way I've done it, but there's no scientific reason why. Step 2 is to turn this goal into ideally a daily metric. If you can't do daily, aim for weekly. So let's say our goal was to produce a 3-track EP, and that basically equals 1 track per month. and let's say it takes us 30 hours to make a track, well, it follows then that we should be producing for 1 hour every day. That is our daily metric. Now, some days you're not going to be able to produce, and so you might do 2 hours the next day or something like that. But the daily metric is 1 hour per day. And finally, to ensure that we achieve our goals and are able to work on our daily output, our metric, we need to organize our environment. So at this point, what I'm going to do is move over to 2 documents that I'm going to link, put links in for you. These are free, you don't have to pay for them. And it's going to help you work through this plan, okay? So let's pop over there now. This is a producer action plan. I'll have a link for this. You can use a Google Doc if you click here. And this is just going to walk you through it. I'd recommend printing this out, otherwise just filling it in on your computer. Put a rough, kind of vague, long-term vision in here. Where do you want to be 15 to 20 years from now? And I'll fill this in for you while I'm going, just as an example. Let's say I want to be in the commercial, working full-time in the commercial industry, running my own production company. Let's say that. 90-day goal. Maybe I'm a newish producer. How will I move towards this vision? I need to have a controllable output goal. So maybe my goal is to make 6 tracks in the next 90 days. And there's no obligation here or no pressure to release these. It's just finish. I should use that word finish actually. Finish 6 songs in the next 90 days. That's it. I don't need to put anything else here. I could define this further if I wanted to. What does finish mean? What does song mean? But that's it. 6 songs in the next 90 days. How will I know that I'm on track? What is the metric that I'm going to use? Well, if a song takes me, I'm not aiming necessarily for quality here. If a song takes me, let's say, 20 hours to make, and I need to make 6 of them, well, that's 120 hours in the next 90 days. So 120 divided by 90. I'm going to have to put in about 1 hour, 20 minutes a day. So I'm just going to change this to 1.5 hours per day. And maybe I want to define this more, like maybe in the weekend I have more time. So I do 1 hour every weekday and then catch up in the weekend. But this is my daily metric. And we could add in a monthly here. Monthly metric is going to be 40 hours per month. And so forth. About 10 hours per week. And then how am I going to ensure that I succeed? How will I track my goal and metric? What you can use is this, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But you might have another system like an app on your phone, or you might just have a calendar where you click off it's not click, my goodness. Use a pen to just like write X's. That's what Seinfeld did. So I'm going to use a spreadsheet. You want to put this stuff down as well. How will I optimize my physical environment? How will I actually achieve this goal? What are some of the things I'm going to come across? Well, I might say, turn Wi-Fi off, close door, tell others when I'm working, blah, 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 blah. How will I optimize myself? If you want more information on this, by the way, you can read the article that goes along with this video. I'll link it below as well. I'm not gonna pull all-nighters to try and finish my work. I know that that's not effective for me. I'm not going to do it. It messes me up. I will stick to a schedule. I'll eat well. And so on and so on and so on, right? So that's kind of an example of what you would do. But obviously be a bit more detailed than that and think through it. I'm just using it to kind of show you what I mean. And again, you can print this out. Even if you fill it in online, I would recommend printing it out. and putting it on your wall. So once you've finished this producer action plan and printed it out, what you want to do, if you choose to do it this way, is you need to track your metric, because you want to make sure that you're working towards your goal. So I've created this spreadsheet here. It doesn't look amazing. You can click the link and then go File, Make a Copy to use it yourself. You won't be able to edit this one. Basically, this just allows you to track your daily metric plus a few other things if you want to. You don't have to. This is the dashboard. This is what it's going to look like for the whole year. And let's say, what are we in? We're in March. So it would be planning, let's say, for quarter 2. So click on quarter 2. My goal for quarter 2 might be to produce a 3-track EP in 90 days, obviously. So there's my goal. My monthly metric, I already know this, is going to be 30 hours of production per week. Right. My weekly metric is going to be about 7 hours of production per week. And my daily metric is going to be 1 hour production per day. Now, it's worth defining all of these because sometimes you're not going to be able to hit the daily, but you will be able to hit the weekly. And these are just binary options. So let's say it's April the 1st and I do my 1 hour production per day. You can use 0 and 1 for anything. If my metric's something else, like watch a YouTube tutorial every day, I would just do a 1 for yes and a 0 for no, I didn't do that. Right? Anyway, that's a stupid metric. So let's say I go through and I hit all of these for the week. Awesome. I would then do a 1 on my weekly metric too. I achieved it. What if I didn't hit it on this day, but then doubled up in the case of this? I would just, you would know this. I would just put a weekly metric anyway. Did I achieve it? That's a daily metric. And when you do that, it will show up on this sheet here. You can see for April, I've hit it 7 days so far, right? But there's a few other things here as well. Obviously the weekly and monthly metric. I'm just gonna take these out. Time spent producing, this is in minutes. So worth checking this. It might be 60, 120, maybe I did 2 hours, so on and so on. And that's obviously gonna add up over here. Time spent producing, annual, 9 hours, April, 5.25. These are subjective metrics. So if you feel like you've been really creative that day, then put 80, 90%, 100%. If you don't, put something lower. This is just subjective. So there's no, you have to figure this out yourself. Output is how much work you felt like you got done compared to the time. So maybe you spend 2 hours producing one day, but you don't feel like you really did that much. Your output would be low, maybe 50%. Maybe you only did half an hour, but you got a lot done. Output's going to be high. Then finally, how difficult did you find the session? Put that in. This is going to average out here. And it's also going to average out here at the end. So that is the metric tracking sheet. There might be a few issues with it. If there are, just let me know. 4 quarters, they all go into here. Make any changes to it that you like. You will have your own copy. But please don't link this and send this to anyone. Please don't upload it to your own website or whatever. This is property of EDMProd. So that is how to set goals as a producer. I hope this helped. I hope it made some sense. Now, just before you go, I've got something for new producers and I've got something for those who've been producing for a while. If you're completely new to production, you've watched this video, and it excites you, but you feel like you just don't know where to start with music production, then this stuff here is a little bit overkill for you, because you don't know which goals you should be setting, because you don't know what you don't know. And so that's why we created a course called EDM Foundations. So you can go to edmprod.com/EDM EDM Foundations. This is a course for beginners. It's going to help you master the fundamentals of electronic music production by making 4 songs in 4 weeks. And you can listen to these projects here. So that's EDM Foundations. If you have any questions about this course, just let me know. Now, if you're a bit more experienced and you want to make music that's unique and memorable, then we have a course for you called Songwriting for Producers. And this course is going to help you master music theory, melodies, chord progressions, all that kind of stuff. If you want to get better at arrangement, you want to get better at songwriting, theory, all that kind of stuff, this course is for you. You can check that out at songwriting-for-producers, or you can just find these on the website EDMProd.com. Any questions about this video or setting goals, just let me know. I'll get back to you. And if there's any other videos that you want me to make on this kind of stuff, also let me know in the comment section below. Cheers and happy producing.